it's Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
It's time for the biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport. Let's join the team for the biggest show in the world of sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.
It's lights out, everybody. We are up and rolling. Welcome to it. This is ZiFM Sport on a Tuesday, Top Hit Tuesday, the lockdown edition. From our homes to the comfort of your homes, you'll hear from Barry Manandi, Mike Madoda, Mark Paz, Chris, and Alois Bunjira. My name is Sean Tafirenyika. I'm the producer of ZiFM Sport. I hope you're staying at home and being safe. As always, we've got our staple on a Tuesday, the Formula One report. You can also look out for a local sports news roundup around the world in 60 plus our power play. We've also got a beautiful game in the second half of the show where the Premier League says the preference is for all clubs to be able to play home and away if the competition resumes next month. While in La Liga, former Barca president Joan Laporta plans to enter the Barcelona presidential elections next year and wants Pep Guardiola to return if he is successful. So there's that and plenty more. Tonight on the show, we'll feature the most disappointing sporting moments. I want to hear from you. Which sporting moments spring into mind when you think of disappointment? Hit us up. The handle is at ZiFM Sport on Facebook and Twitter.
The Power Play on ZiFM Sport. Manic Monday.
Our power play on a Topic Tuesday is always Mabes by Jonathan Davis. You know how it be. You know that look back. You know the good, the bad, the indifferent relationships that didn't work out. But eventually you find...
Hi, this is Alexandra Maseko, and I'm the national basketball team captain, and you're listening to ZiFM Sport.
Z.
You know, if there's one thing we would all like to avoid when it comes to sport, it's losing. Sadly, losing is inevitable, and very few feelings are intense as the pain and agony of not getting over the line, especially when the stakes are so high. Tonight, the Z team will feature some of the most disappointing moments in sport, those gut-wrenching, you want to rip your eyes out type vibes, because they are painful and they are unbearable. We'll hear from Barry, who will talk about the Warriors' dream team and that heartbreaking moment they failed to qualify for the World Cup after losing to Cameroon, and that infamous Steven Gerrard slip, simply known as the slip. But let's kick things off with Alois, who will talk about that heartbreaking loss to Egypt at the National Sports Stadium during that 1995 Africa Games final.
Yeah, individually, you know, for me as a footballer, I think the most disappointing moment was the 1995 All-Africa Games final. You know, we lost to Egypt by 3-1. You know, we had played so well. You know, we had caught the imagination of everybody. You know, we had captivated the hearts of the nation when we started the All-Africa Games by beating the very Egypt in the opening match of the 1995 All-Africa Games 2-1 at the Peg Rufaro Stadium. Good evening that was, and you know, everybody started believing in us. We started believing in ourselves, you know, because Egypt was one of the favorites and we had managed to beat them in the very opening match. You know, it sparked a whole wild celebrations around Zimbabwe, and everybody was now thinking, you know what, we can actually win this, and we believed that we could. Then we played our second game against Zambia. I think we were overconfident. I don't know what was happening. We lost that match 2-0, but we came back guns blazing, and in the greatest comebacks, I actually think that that was the greatest comeback in world football. You know, it's only that we are in Zimbabwe and people don't really get to know about this, but we played against Congo in our last match. We needed a win not a draw. We needed a win, an outright win for us to qualify for the semi-finals of the All Africa Games. And guess what? 90 minutes we were losing by 1-0 against Congo, and they were doing all sorts of delaying tactics, and we managed to score 2 goals in the last minute. Yes, it happened. 2 goals in the last minute, including the second goal that was scored with the last kick of the match. We scored and the game was over. Edo Bedina scored that winner. We won 2-1, and that was the most exciting match during the All Africa Games. And what did it do? It actually increased the interest, of the public about the All Africa Games. Then we went to Blaauweiler for the semi-finals. We beat Guinea by 2-0, pegged Barberfield Stadium. I'll never forget that, one of my most memorable matches. That is, then came the final. That was the final at the National Sports Stadium against the very Egypt that was in our group that we had beaten 2-1 at Rufaro Stadium, and now this was National Sports Stadium, and the whole of Zimbabwe, the nation. I've never seen a stadium so packed for a junior match, for a national junior team match. It was the under 23s, and the stadium was packed to the rafters. I think more than 60,000, because when you say 60,000, that is the capacity of that stadium, but we know when it's packed, it actually carries a lot more than 60,000. So I can safely say probably 70,000. I don't know, but people came, and the match was also live on TV. So that means almost all Zimbabwean soccer-loving people were watching this match. And here we were, the favorite. We were now the favorites. It started as Egypt as favorites before the tournament, but we were now the favorites when we were playing in the final, and we were confident that we were going to win. But guess what? It was sweltering hot, and we got hammered by Egypt by 3-1. I will never forget that tall guy. They called him Ali Maha. He scored a double, and we lost that match. George Mbwana managed to score a consolation for us, and we lost 3-1. That was so disappointing. You could actually feel the silence at the National Sports Stadium. Packed, like I said, but everybody was so quiet and disappointed. People didn't really know what hit us, because they expected us to beat Egypt, because we had ran over them. We had ran rings around them in the first match of the competition. So people expected a super performance just like that, but it just couldn't come out, and we lost. So for me, that was very disappointing. Not just for me, but just to look at the situation that we had disappointed so many people. That was the biggest disappointment. I could take the lose because I've lost matches myself, but to look at the people, to feel the people, the mothers at home, the grandmothers at home, the fathers, the uncles, whoever they were behind us, to actually feel that we had disappointed them, I think that was actually the most disappointing part. So that became the most disappointing match for me individually.
Hi, I'm Clemens Matau, chicken in midfielder. You're listening to ZiFM Sports.
Looking at the 2 most disappointing sporting moments from my side, well, it's easy because they stem from the 2 teams that I dearly love. The first, from a local perspective, relates to probably one of the finest teams assembled to represent this nation. And the second, from further afield, is from when a team of red men looked set to break a long-standing hoodoo, only for it to be a false dawn. My 2 most disappointing sporting moments are the Zimbabwe Dream Team falling in Yaoundé and Liverpool's captain falling at Anfield, and thereby denying Liverpool Football Club the opportunity to win the English Premier League. Let's start with arguably the finest warriors assembled by none other than Reinhard Fabish. When the Dream Team marched into the cauldron of Yaoundé's Stade Amadou Ahidjo Stadium on the July the 4th, 1993, to be met by a screaming mob of 71,000 fans baying for their blood, Reinhard Fabish and his band of warriors were just 90 minutes away from writing football's greatest fairy tale. Standing between them and a place at the 1994 World Cup finals, something which had never been achieved by any Southern African nation back then, were the indomitable Lions of Cameroon, who only 4 years earlier had illuminated Italia 90 thanks to the heroics and theatrics of the ageless Roger Milla. Fabish and his men had made the country dare to dream, eliminating the pharaohs of Egypt along the way and going on an incredible 10-match unbeaten run in World Cup and Nations Cup qualifiers, and now they stood on the threshold of greatness, with a victory in Yaoundé propelling them to the World Cup in the United States. But dreams sometimes do not come true, and the Warriors crashed to a 3-1 defeat, with Fabish accusing the referees of aiding the hosts with questionable officiating. As Cameroon celebrated a second straight appearance at the World Cup, Zimbabwe were left to deal with the deflation of a shattered dream. But it was less to do with the fact that the Warriors team, albeit that they richly deserved a dance at the biggest footballing stage, but more to do with the fact that collectively and individually, this group of warriors deserved so much more. Many may say that these warriors didn't achieve anything. They didn't qualify for the Africa Cup of Nations, neither did they qualify for the World Cup. But this argument negates the qualifying framework that existed back then, that would always put you on a collision course with the best on the continent. And this team did that with aplomb. Further, to be so close to World Cup qualification is no mean feat at all. Had they been victorious in that 90 minutes in Yaoundé, not only would this team have been immortalized, but also you can be guaranteed that none of that team would have returned to play football on the continent. They would have been in Europe at probably the best teams in the world. Just look at the Cameroon team that they faced. I mean, you had the likes of Joseph Antoine Bell in goal. He played in France. Raymond Kalla, Rigobert Song, we know that he ultimately turned out for Liverpool. And of course, the late Marc-Vivien Foe. And double scorer in that Warriors match, Francois Omambik. They all went on to do great things in the world of football. More than 70% of that Cameroon team that went to the World Cup were playing domestically in Cameroon before the tournament. After the tournament, the ratio reversed as most of them got lucrative contracts in Europe. These warriors were that good. Adnan Ndlovu went on trial at Alex Ferguson's Manchester United, for goodness sake, and Fergie opted for Eric Cantona instead. That's the stature of this team. Henry Mako, Bully, Francis Shonai, Ephraim Chawanda, the Rock of Gibraltar, Benjamin Konjera, they all deserved a bigger stage. This was certainly a golden opportunity missed. The other disappointing sporting moment for me was on April the 27th, 2014. League leaders Liverpool versus second place Chelsea at Anfield in their third to last game of the season. The Reds were on a 16-game unbeaten streak in the Premier League and had won their previous 11, including a dramatic 3-2 victory over title rivals Manchester City. They were 5 points clear at the top of the table. It boasted the talents of the likes of Felipe Coutinho, Luis Suarez was in the team, Raheem Sterling. What a squad. And in that match against Chelsea at Anfield, disaster struck on the stroke of halftime in a moment that has left a scar on the collective psyche of Liverpool fans across the world. With the game delicately poised at 0-0, Gerrard failed to control a routine pass from Mamadou Sakho, allowing the ball to roll into the path of Chelsea striker Demba Ba. That might not have been a big issue on its own, but to the horror of every Liverpool fan, Steven Gerrard then lost his footing and slipped to the ground, allowing Ba to race through on goal completely unhindered. Though Gerrard made his best efforts to try and stop Demba Ba from striking on goal, he was to do it in vain, because Demba Ba was to fire past a stranded Simon Mignolet and put Chelsea one up going into the halftime interval. Willian would put the final nail in the coffin in injury time at the end of the match after some typical Mourinho defense that left Brendan Rodgers saying they parked two buses. Liverpool would still have an opportunity though that season to stay in the hunt for the title had they won their last two games, but throwing away a 3-goal lead at Crystal Palace ending 3-3 would render that moot and hand the title to Manchester City. But it was that Chelsea game, not only for denying Liverpool the title, but also the fact that one of the finest midfielders in Liverpool and certainly in English history, the quintessential one-club man, a gentleman, a leader, Stevie G, that he was the one to slip, and even more detrimental, that he would likely not have another chance in his career to win the one trophy he hadn't, the Premier League in England, is absolutely heartbreaking. Yes, sport is about highs and lows, but these two lows for me are still hard to swallow.
You know, when it comes to the best Zimbabwe Warriors team, the consensus is that Reinhard Fabric's dream team was the best. And that cold hard fact is that they never qualified for a major tournament. That's why the disappointment with this team is so palpable, because they almost came close, but they never got over the line. That crushing 3-1 defeat at the hands of Cameroon in Yaoundé, as we heard from Barry, denying them a place at the FIFA World Cup in 1994. What even makes it worse are the circumstances of that defeat. It was widely reported that the refereeing in Cameroon was very dodgy. And then Barry also talked about the slip We all saw it in real time, but it seems like it happened in slow motion. Steven Gerrard received the ball in that position, that similar position, 58 times throughout the game. And in 57 of those times, he got the pass away. But that 58th time, he slipped. And then that Demba Ba goal was it. That was the nail on the coffin, and so were the league aspirations vanquished for Liverpool, who had waited a very, very long time. So painful. And before we heard from Barry, Alois talked about that 1995 final loss to Egypt. The belief was there. The expectations were there. They were the hosts, and they'd even beaten Egypt before. But come the day of the final, the young Warriors fall short. And I think what's even more painful is that they were hammered. It's reminiscent of that FIFA 24 World Cup final where the host Brazil lost 7-1 to eventual World Cup champions Germany. Because you can't blame it on anything and say, the referee was bad, the guys were suffering from food poisoning. Sometimes you're just beaten and you're well beaten. Alright, let's keep the interaction going. The handle is at ZiFM Sport on Facebook and Twitter. What have been some of your most disappointing moments in sport? Hit us up, let me know. Now remember, we've got our Formula 1 report, updates from the beautiful game and around the world in 60. But coming up next, it's a local sports news update on the home front with Pause.
The home front. Local sports news and analysis.
To a local sports roundup where we'll start with cricket. Zimbabwe Cricket have drawn up a comprehensive plan on how they intend to restart their programs at the end of the coronavirus lockdown. The association were forced to cancel the domestic league as well as the scheduled visit by Ireland last month. The tour by Afghanistan, which was set for next month, is now under serious threat, but they are hopeful the remainder of the international fixtures will be able to take place this year. To the Olympics, with various sectors across the world feeling the effects of the coronavirus outbreak, the Zimbabwe Olympic Committee have said they will use their quarterly board meeting to assess the effects of the pandemic. In a normal environment, being an Olympic year, it would have been the time when national Olympic committees and athletes would be ready for the Olympic Games. SOC have had to suspend some of their activities, including their preparations for the Games, and their chief executive, Anna Mnguni, has said they will assess the effects of the pandemic next week and discuss the way forward. To the Castle Lager Premier Soccer League, where Highlanders coach Mark Harrison is set to announce his departure from the club. The Briton, who joined Highlanders at the beginning of the year, only took charge of one match, the Castle Challenge Cup, which Bosso lost 2-0 to the league champions. Sources say that Harrison, who the club was negotiating with for a salary cut due to COVID-19 effects, has decided to leave the club. That's your local sports roundup.
Hi, my name is Sean Williams, Zimbabwe cricket captain. You're listening to ZiFM Sport.
Tonight we're talking about the most disappointing moments in sport. And before the break, we heard from Alois and Barry. Let's now hear from Mike, who's got that Chevron's failed World Cup qualification in 2018 and New Zealand's loss to France in the last 8 of the 2007 Rugby World Cup.
You know, if you're a sports fan or a sports pundit or anyone who's emotionally invested in sport, disappointments will certainly come. I have been following sport ever since I was a wee little nipper, and I've had my fair few. And I just look back, I think in more recent times for me, Zimbabwe's absence at the Cricket World Cup in England and Wales last year was a bitter pill to swallow. You know, you just need to rewind to 20 years ago, 1999, in the same country, in England. Zimbabwe beating the likes of India and South Africa, making it to the Super Sixes of that tournament, which means that we were one of the top 6 one-day international playing nations at that World Cup 20 years ago. But this time, we couldn't even make the party. Very, very disappointing for me. And I think that has got to be, in recent times, my most disappointing experience because, you know, prior to the tournament, Zimbabwe never used to go down the qualification route by virtue of our test status. We were, of course, always accorded the opportunity of playing at the Cricket World Cup. But at the last edition in 2019, the tournament was reduced to a 10-team competition and a qualification system involving the lowest placed teams on the rankings table, and the second tier sides of international cricket was introduced. And a lot of people would have thought that Zimbabwe was going to canter through this qualification process. The West Indies, oddly enough, of course, because of their low ranking, was actually involved in this qualifiers, Bangladesh having pipped them to the post as far as direct qualification was concerned. So there were 2 places up for grabs, and the teams that were involved, one just taking a look at them on paper would say that Zimbabwe and the West Indies are a shoe, and Zimbabwe more so because we were playing at home and the home advantage was very, very apparent. The qualifiers were watched by unprecedented crowds. Almost all the games at the 4 venues in Harare and Bulawayo, even those involving neutral teams, had a packed house. I mean, Zimbabwe's penultimate qualifying tie at Harare Sports Club against the West Indies, in which the hosts could have sealed qualification had we won that actual game with a game to spare, was watched by almost 10,000 spectators. If that wasn't enough, the game which we were supposed to win to seal qualification, which was of course against the United Arab Emirates, was watched by 17,000 fans. That's the biggest crowd ever seen at a cricket match in Zimbabwe. People thronged the venue. I was there. It was noisy. It was expectant, but we watched on in horror as Zimbabwe crumbled to a 3-run defeat versus the UAE. And that, for me, added insult to injury. We lost to the United Arab Emirates, guys. This was not New Zealand. This was not Australia. This was not South Africa, Sri Lanka, or even the West Indies. This was the United Arab Emirates, a side that if we had played 9 times out of 10, we would beat. In fact, 10 times out of 10, we expected to beat. So it was very, very disappointing. And I know, you know what, things did happen at Zimbabwe cricket. We saw Hit Streak was sacked. The captain, Graham Creamer, as well, was stepped down. Chief selector Tatenda Tayubu lost his place. But I felt that the level, the complicity was much higher than just those 3 in the technical department. You know, heads should have rolled even at board level. People should have accepted responsibility and fallen on their own swords, because that was very disappointing. That was very embarrassing. And for us fans of the Chevrons, that was very, very disappointing. So for me, that has got to be the most bitter disappointment I've had in sport in recent times. And then I want to go back, 2007 internationally, the All Blacks. Oh man, that was a crushing disappointment, because it wasn't just about the All Blacks losing to France. If you remember, then the All Blacks lost their quarterfinals at the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff. They lost 2018 to France, their bogey side then at the World Cup. New Zealand actually led 13-3 at halftime. So with a comfortable 10-point lead, a team that had the stellar talents of Luke McAllister, Daniel Carter, Richie McCaw, Rodney Soilao, Jimmy Collins, so many great players were in that side. It was a side that was expected to go on and win the World Cup. Ranked number 1 in the world at that time, they were expected to do the business, but they came a cropper against the French. And for me, it wasn't just about the result, but it was also the manner in which they lost. They lost because of one, bad refereeing. Okay, the French played well, but the refereeing was absolutely woeful. Wayne Barnes, the Englishman, did not cover himself in glory, because there was the controversial sin binning of Luke McAllister, which I think swung the momentum of the game, because once the French were one man up, they then started to play, and they exploited all the gaps and spaces that they were accorded in that 10-minute period. And not only that, the crucial try that France scored was a forward pass. A blatant forward pass, and you wonder between the referee, who was less than 10 yards from the play, and the linesman, how they could have missed that one. And in the end, the All Blacks missed out by 2 points. So I think it's not just about the result, but also the controversial referee and that forward pass that is still talked about in New Zealand rugby, because that really should have been the beginning of New Zealand's dominance at the World Cup. Well, they did come good in 2011, 4 years later, and then again in 2015, winning 2 World Cups in a row. But 2007 is a World Cup that the All Blacks should have won. And so that defeat, controversial, versus France, leaves a bitter taste in the mouth.
ZiFM.
You know, it's heart-wrenching to lose fair and square, but it's even more heart-wrenching when there's another force that's unfairly behind your loss, and especially if you deserve the win, and that was the All Blacks in 2007, like we heard from Mike. It could have been a three-peat, victory at the 2007 World Cup, and then 2011, 2015. Such was the dominance of the All Blacks, but to think that something as menial as a forward pass denied them a place in history. Sport can be so cruel sometimes. And then how about the Chevrons being unable to qualify for the 2019 ICC Cricket World Cup? There were 2 spots up for grab. We were the hosts and we were actually doing well in that tournament. But then we lost to the United Arab Emirates. The shock, the horror, the pain. In that order were all the feelings I remember that day at the Harare Sports Club. Oh man. Sport does a number on you. Now, even though we have experienced so much disappointment when it comes to sport, let's not forget that there have been also some moments of pure joy and happiness, and it's important to remember that. Now, coming up next is the Formula One report, followed by the latest in international sports news with Around the World in 60 from Chris, and then our power play on a Top Hit Tuesday.
From sunny Melbourne to the streets of Monaco, the deserts of Bahrain to the jungles of Brazil. Get up to speed on the Formula One Report. The Formula One Report is proudly brought to you by Zimoco, the home of F1 brands Mercedes-Benz and Alfa Romeo in Zimbabwe. Zimoco, specialized service for special brands.
Yes, it is the Zimoco Formula One report, and this week we are talking about 2 of our Jeep vehicles which we currently have in stock at special discounted prices. I'm talking about the Jeep Grand Cherokee and the Jeep Compass Trailhawk. I absolutely love those names. Fantastic. Now, guys, I'm going to whet your appetite before we actually get into the meat of the matter. So let me just give you a little teaser on the specs of the 2020 Jeep Compass. It is a compact SUV, and it has been completely redesigned to mimic a smaller version of the well-known Grand Cherokee with similar headlights and body shape. It has a sleek, sporty appearance and is available in a 2.4-litre petrol engine with either manual or automatic transmission. Personally, I prefer the automatic. The less work, the better, but there are those that prefer manual. Well, know that at Zimoco we have both, and what we also have is more information on those 2 vehicles, the Jeep Grand Cherokee and the Jeep Compass Trailhawk. Stay locked onto the Zimoco Formula One report right here on ZiFM Sport.
Straight into our F1 report with Zimoco. Sebastian Vettel will leave Ferrari at the end of the 2020 season. The 4-time world champion's contract expires at the end of this year, and a joint statement announced that it would not be renewed. In order to get the best possible results in the sport, it's vital for all parties to work in perfect harmony, said Vettel, who joined Ferrari in 2015. The team and I have realized that there is no longer a common desire to stay together beyond the end of this season. Speculation had abounded in recent weeks that Vettel had turned down a reduced offer from the Scuderia to stay on as Charles Leclerc's teammate, but the German insisted financial matters have played no part in this joint decision.
Now, the Compass Trailhawk delivers outstanding 4x4 capability thanks to the Select Terrain Traction Management System. Combined with the Jeep Active Drive Low 4x4 system, you get outstanding on-road traction and dominating off-road performance. The Compass Trailhawk interior features refined leather-trimmed seats, accented by signature ruby red stitching throughout. Comfort combines with capability to command attention and improve your cabin experience. Finally, the Connect 4 with 8.4-inch touchscreen puts the info you want right where you need it. Use the Uconnect interface to access Apple CarPlay support or Android Auto integration and use your smartphone capabilities without ever having to take your eyes off the road. This compact SUV will surprise you with its affordability coupled with its amazing range of available options. It is a real head turner and available from Zimoco.
Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton believes returning to Grand Prix racing without fans will be an empty experience as Formula One prepares to launch the new season behind closed doors. Formula One expects to hold its first race on the 5th of July in Austria as a double header followed by 2 meetings at Silverstone, all without spectators. However, there remains the possibility that government quarantine restrictions may make travel for Formula One teams unfeasible. Regardless, the prospect of racing before vacant grandstands does not appeal to the defending world champion. It gave me a really empty feeling, he said. The fans really make the race, and around the world, the more fans, the more atmosphere you have, like at Silverstone and Monza, so it is going to be very empty. Our most popular model is the famous Jeep Grand Cherokee, and it is the most awarded SUV on the market. It is the best 4x4 on the roads with its super select terrain, which makes going off-road a pleasure with only having to turn a nozzle to change driving modes. It also has unbelievable towing capacity and yet has all the interior luxury and comfort expected in an SUV with Uconnect multimedia touchscreen, Apple and Android integration, heated and cooling seats and much more. This large SUV is available in a 3.6-litre petrol or a 3-litre diesel engine with over 70 standard and available safety and security features. The Grand Cherokee will also keep you and your loved ones out of harm's way. Available in multiple trims, there is a Jeep Grand Cherokee to suit your budget and your lifestyle. Don't miss out on these special offers. Visit our Zimoko Borodale showroom and San Levy's Village today, or email our sales team on sales@zimoko.co.zw for more information. Furthermore, our Borodale Service Centre will now be open on Saturday mornings from 8 a.m. Please call us on 885345 to make a booking. Also, don't forget the first 50 customers to bring their vehicle in for a service at either our Borodale Service Centre or Southerton workshops will receive a 20-litre petrol or diesel coupon. Make sure you book your vehicle in for a service today. Terms and conditions apply. Stay safe, Zimbabwe, and together we will get through this.
The Formula One Report is proudly brought to you by Zimoko, the home of F1 brands Mercedes-Benz and Alfa Romeo in Zimbabwe. Zimoko, specialized service for special brands.
Hi, this is Alexandra Maseko, and I'm the national basketball team captain, and you're listening to ZiFM Sport.
Around the world in 60 seconds. International sports news.
We take you around the world in 60, courtesy of DSTV. And we take off in London, where despite this growing possibility of a total wipeout of professional tennis this year due to the coronavirus pandemic, ATP Tour chief Andrea Gaudenzi is refusing to give up. The tennis season was suspended in early March due to the pandemic, and the hiatus will continue until at least mid-July, with many countries on lockdown to contain the virus. Wimbledon has cancelled and the French Open postponed from its usual May start to September, while the status of the US Open scheduled to take place in late August remains unclear. We head over to Florida, where US Ryder Cup captain Steve Stricker has announced Davis Love III and Zach Johnson as his next 2 vice captains. Love and Johnson join Jim Furyk, who led the 2018 team after he was named as Stricker's first pick, while European captain Padraig Harrington has named Robin Carlson and Luke Donald as his first 2 vice captains. The 2020 Ryder Cup is due to be played at Whistling Straits in September, although the coronavirus has created uncertainty over the tournament, which could yet be postponed or played without spectators. We touched down in California, where retired 4-time NBA champion Shaquille O'Neal says the league would be smart to call off the halted 2019-2020 campaign and avoid crowning a champion that would carry an asterisk. O'Neal, in an interview with USA Today, said players should start to prepare for a 2020-2021 season and set aside a campaign halted in March by the coronavirus pandemic, with 5 weeks of regular season games and 2 months of playoffs remaining. I think we should scrap the season. Everybody go home, get healthy, come back next year. Just scrap the season. Just scrap it, O'Neal told the newspaper. So big time golf is back. There won't be a big trophy or world rankings at stake. Instead, some of the sport's biggest name will be teeing up this weekend for a greater cause. All proceeds will support COVID-19 relief. So make a date with us on DSTV.
Hi, this is Mike Madura, and you can catch me and the team for all the latest breaking news out of the world of sport, local as well as international, on your favorite station, my station, your station, ZiFM. We are Z Team on ZiFM Sport.
Z.
You're tuned into ZiFM Stereo, my station, your station. This is the lockdown edition of ZiFM Sport. Let's now get the latest football news in the beautiful game.
The big leagues, the big teams, the big players. The beautiful game on ZiFM Sport. All the rivalry.
Here is Harry Kane for Tottenham. Oh, what a goal! A classic derby goal from Harry Kane. Catch him if you can.
All the stars.
Oh, back here's Liverpool 2 in front. Talk about impudence. Talk about improvisation. Talk about Sadio Mane.
And all the game-changing moments.
And Raheem Sterling rattles it home. And once more, City are in front in a trice.
All the updates from the Premier League on ZiFM Sport.
The Premier League says the preference is for all clubs to be able to play home and away if the competition resumes next month, and insists no club has asked for the curtailment of the season or scrapping of relegation if it restarts. Premier League shareholders discussed Project Restart during virtual talks yesterday following the government's new guidance on lockdown restrictions. Top-level sport in England could restart behind closed doors from the 1st of June, but spectators may not be able to attend venues until a coronavirus vaccine is found. Interesting situation we have in England. The clubs cannot agree on a restart format. I think what we have is a situation where the clubs are agreed on the fact that they need to restart because of the large sums of money that are involved. But what's not clear is how these clubs and the league should move forward. So the government and the UK's top football police officers have suggested that games should be played in neutral venues, but that plan has been opposed by many relegation-threatened clubs, and what's interesting about this, there's no home ground advantage that's really to be fought for here, because a large part of what makes that atmosphere is the fans. The crowds create that hostile environment, and neutral venues would be best because then you limit the exposure of the players and other staff to the virus. What's interesting again about this deadlock is that it's your smaller relegation-threatened clubs sitting close to the bottom of the table at the moment that are fighting this. You have at the forefront your Watford, Aston Villa, Brighton. These are the teams insisting that they don't want to play in neutral venues. EPL CEO Richard Masters, though, says that 20 Premier League clubs remain committed to finishing the 2019-2020 season, and has insisted that no club has asked for the curtailment of this campaign or asked the Premier League to scrap relegation if the season does restart. But there was a discussion for the very first time of what would happen if the league did not resume. Now, this is another interesting point in the discussions from yesterday, that they're even exploring the idea, even though it's the first time we're hearing about these kind of discussions from England, it gives an indication that it's become an option on the cards because of the deadlock. UEFA has also given the different leagues a timeline, and they have to present their restart format or the way in which they restart, or simply a decision on whether or not they will restart, and they've been given a deadline to do so. So I think this is what's putting a lot more pressure on the EPL itself. Testing, medical protocols, and any potential return to group training was also discussed, and there's going to be more meetings between players and managers this week. But the Premier League clubs could return to group training on the 18th of May, which is next Monday, and this is subject to approval by players. This is where they may meet some additional resistance to a league resumption, with some of the influential players such as Sergio Aguero publicly stating that some of the players have families and that there are fears between players of what could happen if there is a restart, and that restarting the league is not worth the health risk. So we're still to see how the EPL will restart, but it's good to see that the teams are committed to a restart. The format, the players, and a lot more discussion still to be had, but England looks to be lurching along.
Z. The league that makes football oh so beautiful, where artistry and strokes of genius are the order of any day, where the game is played with a smile and the little master creates his magic.
It's Lionel Messi!
All the news from the Spanish La Liga on ZiFM Sport.
The goal the world wants it!
Interesting news out of Spain, and the reports are that Juan Laporta plans to enter the Barcelona presidential elections next year and wants Pep Guardiola to return if he is successful. Laporta spent 7 years as Barcelona president before stepping down in 2010. A decade after relinquishing power at Camp Nou, the 57-year-old has set his sights on succeeding Josep Maria Bartomeu in 2021. Laporta promoted an inexperienced Pep Guardiola to the role of first-team coach in 2008, and that proved to be a masterstroke. Ooh, very exciting news, this one, if you're a Barcelona fan, because many Barcelona fans, and indeed fans of Spanish football and followers of football generally, will remember the days of Juan Laporta. The combination that he had with Pep Guardiola was a winning one that took Europe by storm and dominated Spanish football. In fact, the dominance that we see Barcelona having in Spanish football for over the last 11 or 12 years, where Barcelona, I think in the last 11 seasons, have won 8 championships compared to Real Madrid's 2 and Atletico Madrid's 1, was really birthed out of Juan Laporta's office. He was an enigmatic, charismatic leader, and the hope is that he still has those qualities to be at the helm of arguably the biggest club in world football. So very exciting if you're a Barcelona fan. Will he be able to pull off the signing of Pep Guardiola from Manchester City? Well, it may be possible, because we're not talking about this year or next year. We're talking about 2021. In fact, we're talking about next year, 2021. When does Pep Guardiola's contract with Manchester City runs out? Interestingly enough, at the end of this coming season, unless he recommits to Manchester City. He has talked about seeing out his contract at Manchester City, so I don't think he can be prized away from City as of this moment. And I think this season, actually, if the Champions League is completed, Pep Guardiola has got a decent chance of winning the UEFA Champions League. Manchester City are in a good place right now. One leg, 1 foot into the door as far as the quarterfinals are concerned. They went to the Santiago Bernabeu. They beat Real Madrid 2-1 in their own backyard. Sergio Ramos red carded. He's not going to be in the return leg, which will be played at the Etihad. So Pep Guardiola and Manchester City will fancy their chances of progressing to the quarterfinals. Liverpool is already out, which means that it's an open tournament this year. And of course, the one trophy that Manchester City crave is the European Champions League. So I think Barcelona and Juan Laporta's plight may be aided if Pep Guardiola is able to achieve success in Europe at Manchester City. If he wins the Champions League, I think he'll feel that it's mission accomplished. He has come and he has left Manchester City at a higher level than they were. So very interesting times. The incumbent Bartomeu, you know, he's got a few jokers or a few aces up his sleeve, you can say, because when you're the incumbent, you have the power, you have the levers that control everything around the club. So, you know, if he is able to pull off some really good signings, especially this coming transfer window, if he's able to get Neymar through the door, if he's able to get Lautaro Martinez, as has been talked about quite regularly in the press over the last couple of months, through the door, and add another class player, you know, some marquee signings may well turn the tide of opinion towards him, because it has been flowing against him at the moment. It also depends how Barcelona do this season, in the coming Spanish season, which is going to be completed. Can they win another league championship? They've also got a good chance, of course, in the UEFA Champions League. If they win that tournament, I think Bartomeu stays, despite whatever promises Juan Laporta is making.
Z. Horsepower unmatched. Torque to beat the best. Speed unrivaled. Sleek and easy on the eye. Let's get behind the wheel of football engineered to perfection. The Bundesliga, made in Germany.
Our next stop is the Bundesliga, and the DFB Pokal semi-finals will take place on June the 9th and 10th, with the final scheduled for the 4th of July. The new dates were confirmed by the DFB Presidential Board yesterday, with the competition having been indefinitely suspended last month. German football is set to return behind closed doors on Saturday, following a long shutdown enforced by the coronavirus pandemic. Well, certainly all eyes will be on football in Germany this week, as they are the first European country to get football back on track, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of people watching German football on television this weekend. Now, the holders Bayern Munich are to host Eintracht Frankfurt in one semi-final, with FC Saarbrücken taking on Bayer Leverkusen in the other last four clash. The final was initially slated for the 23rd of May at the Olympiastadion in Berlin. So that is good news. Bundesliga football resumes this weekend, and plenty of eyes will be on German football this weekend.
The Nerazzurri, the Black and Blues, Inter Milan.
It's Romelu Lukaku, and it was never in doubt. He's a beast at the best of times, but this season he has become a monster.
The Giallorossi, the Yellow and Reds, AS Roma.
Velotti has a go! Tremendous hits! That's what he's capable of!
La Viola, the Purple Ones, Fiorentina.
Franck Ribéry seals a glorious win for Fiorentina with a sumptuous goal at San Siro.
The Bianconeri, the Black and Whites, Juventus.
Ronaldo seals yet another 3 points for Juventus.
Tough yet colourful, the best of Italian football on Z.
In Italy, Sassuolo general manager Giovanni Cannavali insisted Inter will sign Stefano Sensi permanently. Sensi moved to Serie A rivals Inter on loan with the option of a permanent deal at the start of the 2019-2020 season. Despite injuries marring Sensi's debut season at the San Siro and the January arrival of Christian Eriksen, Inter are set to take up their option on the Italian midfielder. Good player, absolutely hampered by injury, obviously, Stefano Sensi, and I think it'll be a good signing for Inter Milan, and I think you can see all that these teams want to do. You can see the direction that things are going. Teams want to bolster their squads, make sure that they are able to have a squad deep enough to perform on all fronts. Inter, golden opportunity to take the Scudetto this season, but unfortunately patchy results and inconsistent form has rendered that to be a little bit more difficult now. They still have a chance mathematically, but it's a little bit more difficult this season. So you got to think to yourself that the leadership at Inter will be looking at signing Stefano Sensi because he already understands the culture, already understands Inter as a club, and also the fact that he's got the talents to remain at San Siro and make sure that the squad depth is good. They'll be competing in Serie A for the title. They will participate and certainly make a challenge for the Coppa d'Italia, and obviously they will want to make a push in the Champions League. And if they intend to do that, they need to have a good squad. Already they've got the likes of Romelu Lukaku, who has been phenomenal since he arrived at Inter Milan. Christian Eriksen, of course, has arrived there as well. Ashley Young has almost arrived at Inter and been a glove fit almost. You can see he's rediscovered his form, rediscovered his love for the game. And bolstering the squad in this fashion is only going to assist with the impending departure, which I think is very likely, of Lautaro Martinez. Then they've got to make sure that they've got the strength in depth to be able to compete on all fronts. Sassuolo themselves, this will be a good deal for them because no doubt they'll get a healthy amount for Stefano Sensi and will be able to replace him. They're currently 11th in the Serie A at the moment, and they're 7 points above the relegation zone. So you got to think to yourself that they aren't in mortal peril of a relegation at this stage and can start to look forward.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time and we gotta go. But we'll be back tomorrow for ZiFM Sport on a Wednesday. Wacky Wednesday, so don't miss it. Until then, take care of yourself and stay safe.
And it's Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
The biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, on top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.